Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another CSGO map analysis video. Today I have Trailer Park by Skybex and OrnateBaboon. At least those are their Steam names currently. I don't know if those are their real mapper names. They're big boy names. But we got OrnateBaboon, we got a bear sign. Dude, the things surrounding this map are already coming together for me. This is going to be a very interesting video, I'll tell you that much. So, as I traipse around in T-Spawn, I want to talk about a couple of sort of grand ideas that I have about this map, having played on it for a very long time. It is an older map. It has some issues. It has some things where it clearly falls short of whatever was initially intended. It has some things that could definitely be smoothed out or improved, but that does not mean that the map is not fun to play on. In fact, I would say this map has just got some of the most fun that I've ever actually experienced playing Counter-Strike custom content. And that is precisely because it's just got a very interesting layout with a lot of options at most positions in the map. However, we're going to go over the objective as well as the subjective, talk about what actually works and what does not. And of course, part of that is through my opinion, but we're going to be talking about just where this map comes together and where there are some issues. So let's talk about the map. Let's talk about Trailer Park. First thing you should note is this giant truck over here that says A and B. And if you've been paying attention to the radar, you may know why this is a problem. The sites are mislabeled. B site is labeled A site. A site is labeled B site. Or you could flip those around, however you want to call it, because ultimately it could be any number of things. At least we have some flower pots here that we can smash with our knife as we traipse around. So while we go to AB, aka the left side of the map, let's talk a little bit about the T-spawn area in general. We obviously have this entrance into mid further down. And this little secondary mid connector is a nice position for lurks. It's also a nice little wrinkle if you decide that you want to be aggressive as a CT and you are able to push all through AB, the right side of the map, and you're able to come all the way out here and take a look at the spawn. You can wrap around from a couple of different angles, decide to expose yourself more or less to mid. Now, there is no way to completely ignore the mid line of sight. So if you intend as a T to cross towards the A bomb site, where I'm going to go off of the minimap as opposed to the signs because those are going to be more commonly visible. So if we're going to the A bomb site, the right side of the map, and we're trying to cross there as a T, obviously we do have to worry about somebody spotting us from mid, but the mid of the map does take a little bit of time to rotate into, and it's actually possible to obviously just decide that you're going to smoke this off anyway if you wanted to do a late smoke, or late cross rather. So there's all sorts of different things that you can do. It's certainly not required if you wanted to just rush towards A. If you are going to instead go towards B, we should take note of this connector into mid. This little side area essentially gives mid a second layer. And what that means is that you have your mid over here, and there's a connector over towards what I would call Storm Drain, is what the callouts are in the community games that I play. So this is Storm Drain. It's a rather complicated maze, and this is one of the areas where I think I can clearly see where this sewer area, why there were some issues with the layout itself. It looks very imposing and confusing, and you can get lost in it easily despite it being so small. But at the very least, it is relatively small in terms of an area, so it doesn't plague you that much. But this would lead you out into A, basically the T side A entrance. And so you can actually have access to both the sewer connector and the pool connector that goes towards B. And the reason why I call this pool connector is because there's a pool over there. So if we're coming out towards B, and we decide we want to also take a peek towards mid, we have another angle to take fights against the CTs with. So the CTs can be posted up inside this little mid house, this top mid house. They could also be posted up by dumpster in this window, or they can be posted up lower, and they can easily self-boost themselves back up into the window, although it's not so easy from this angle for some reason. I don't know why this happens, but it's much easier if you just do it from here. This is another area where I think with a little bit more polish that would be fixed. I don't know why it doesn't work very well. Either way, the CTs can be posted up there. If they're able to throw a smoke or a flashbang to get themselves out of top mid house, they can also post up over here in, whatever you'd call this. I guess you could call this cardboard because of the cardboard boxes here. And so you could be posted up cardboard by the plant. Shoot all plants. You should also be able to pretty easily take fights in this general vicinity if you wanted to peek out using this railing as your support, but you do have to be wary of somebody coming through the pool connector side to peek mid as well. They can also go a fast approach to the B bomb site by jumping through this little vent at the end over here. This does force a sound cue, so you should be able to hear this if you are sitting over in the top mid area. So that's why actually mid control is important just for timing's sake, which is a nice little touch. However, the vent position itself is not the only thing that you can benefit from over here. And the other thing to note about the vent position is that it's actually super easy to see somebody coming through. They're going to be that little hole there is where the vent actually is. So they are going to be able to see you from the B-bomb site itself, which is another thing that you have to watch out for. I feel really bad calling this the B-bomb site because look at all of the graffiti all over the place. It says A right on the bomb site. You know, it's almost like this is a practical joke or something with all of the different signs that exist to try to tell you, hey, you're going towards the A-bomb site, but it's labeled B on the minimap. So sorry, dude. It's B as far as I'm concerned. So going back to our T approach, we are going to walk through the pool area. I think the pool area is kind of an interesting area just because you get to sort of like play around on the stairs, and it's a way for you to sort of leverage a bit of a headshot angle at a long range. It's almost like Dust 2 Pit, which it's always funny to me when people complain about headshot angles in community maps, but nobody ever complains about them in Dust 2. Maybe they're silently complaining about them or subtly poking holes in the idea that that's an element of CS that's worth preserving. But I personally don't think it's really that big of a deal. This is clearly an intentional design decision to provide a little bit of difference here. So you can flash yourself into this area and then try to take some fights. So I expect that Oppers will be very much likely to leverage this position to try to get a pick towards B long. They can also wrap themselves around to this position. And in theory, I suppose with just one smoke, sort of like a T version of the elbow smoke, right? You should actually be able to get in here undetected and then climb up this ladder. And unless they're pushed up pretty far towards this B long area with the stairs, towards the connector back towards mid, there's really not going to be too many options for them to see you. So this sort of smoke over here could be incredibly deadly. Imagine throwing the smoke and then not actually putting somebody there. You're still dissuading anybody from pushing out on CT side. They are going to have to waste time checking those angles. It's a very powerful position for Ts to potentially put themselves in, especially if you don't intend to actually take B. But the reason why it's so good is that even if you're faking, the CTs still have to do their due diligence, or they have to gamble. And the fact that you can do that, especially given the situation that we see oftentimes in Dust 2, where like A long is the most important thing, that's a case where I think it's really, really powerful in terms of a position to abuse as a T. And it's not like the CTs are completely helpless. For example, if they do want to make a rotate and they want to just give up long, they can just take this rotate into mid without needing to massively redirect themselves. If we go back towards the vent that we popped earlier, this is what that looks like from the other side. And we can take a left after crawling through that vent to get a fast track out to the B long position. We can also, if we decide to push up all the way over here, maybe we smoke this position out, and maybe that allows us to position ourselves in a very easy way to abuse multiple players. We can decide to position ourselves in here as a lurk if we wanted to. If we get smoked out, we can also pivot towards the B long position if we want to. We can threaten that with the sound cue of popping the window if it's not already popped. We can also put a CT over there to watch for a mid aggression and actually play the long position from a little bit further back. We might be able to play the long position completely scoped up towards the right side of the area over here. The trailer park, whatever you would call this, I guess just trailer truck, Forerunner. So if they're going Forerunner, and we're posted up over here with an op as CT, this is an angle we can actually take. We can take this angle and focus entirely on this, because if our actual mid entrance is being held, I don't believe there's any area that they can go, that they can cross to try to infiltrate you without crossing this area. If this guy's smoked, suddenly you've got to worry about that. But I think putting a CT in this position over here would be super valuable because they have to hear the vent break in order for the Ts to come in this area. It's also very, very difficult to actually get in here. Normally, it takes an eternity to actually crawl through there, so be careful about that. But if you were to position a CT in this window spot and try to position yourself such that you are keeping track of this, you get the luxury of dealing with the audio cue of that vent popping, which of course can be done early in the round as a fake, and then you can position yourself there later on. But it's something to keep in mind, because then your opper can be positioned over here, holding for anybody popping out of the pool or popping out of Forerunner. And they don't have to peek wide. They can peek back from back here. Unless they're smoked off, or unless their teammate is smoked off over there, there's really no danger of them dying to somebody being pushed up. So it's not like the Ts are the only ones with an advantageous position at B long. Obviously, the CTs have a pretty strong position themselves as well. Let's talk a little bit about the B bomb site before we move on to mid again and then back to A. The B-bomb site is really interesting for my money just because of the sheer number of post-plant positions that you can be in as a T. If you're not bad at movement, like I am, you can actually easily make this particular jump. I don't even think you have to long jump. You might have to strafe a little bit, but it's not really that much. And obviously, it's a little bit easier from the other side. This is a jump that you can make as a CT coming out of spawn, which is all the way back over here where these two fellers are. And if you're able to make this jump, it doesn't really net you anything in particular, but it does allow you to position yourself in a couple of different interesting spots if you wanted to play from the site itself. Again, I don't really recommend doing that. As a result of the fact that that's not a very useful spot in the early round, what you might be able to do is mid-round to that position if you're convinced that there's going to be a B hit and you're rotating in from spawn or through spawn from the A bomb site or from mid. That is something that you can do as a CT if you wanted to do that. You could also be taking this position as a T if you wanted to do that as well, for the sake of quickly bouncing off towards one of these other positions. I would assume that most people are going to call this quad because of its similarity to the stack box on cache A site, but whatever you might call that green box over there that's fairly high, this is also another very powerful post-plant position. And again, you have this crate hut over here that's very, very useful as a post-plant position just because it's one more position that the CTs have to clear when they're taking site control. The sheer width of the bomb site as well is very exciting for me, very enticing, because if you look at how wide you actually have of an area to plant in, there's a lot of different opportunities for you to plant in varying positions. You could plant out along this entire edge, maybe a little bit closer than farther away, and set yourself up for a post plant where you can strafe out of the hut over here. You can play around quad over here, holding for somebody who's pushing in from the vent area or the window area that's holding from that connector over there. You could also plant a little bit further up on the site and hold from CT spawn, heaven, whatever you want to call this area. And if you're able to do that and hold from heaven, that's another thing. You can hold from B long if you plant it from this area as well. There's so much going on in this particular bomb site in terms of where you can plant. You can obviously plant even further deep if you wanted to. There's a couple of different things that you can do there. So yeah, there's a number of different positions that you have. You are limited to planting on the bomb site itself. Like you can't plant, for example, up on this elevated area. So don't worry, they're not going too avant-garde on you. But one of the things that really excites me about this particular bomb site is the fact that there's so many very compelling post plants that you can get into. So for my money, the B bomb site is a pretty big W. I look at it like a position where there's a lot to clear, but you can verify as a T, you can reasonably assume that a lot of the positions that you're going to see the CTs in have very little to do with the actual bomb site themselves, unless you forced them off beforehand. And because you're able to essentially segment the map into smaller sections, you can kind of liken it, again, to the Dust 2 A site, because that's a position where you're forcing them off long, you're forcing them off cat if they've gone fast cat, which is more rare these days, you're forcing them out mid as well, and they're basically falling back to CT, they're falling back to car, you force them off of car, they fall back to the site itself, the site boxes, you force them to, you know, maybe some of the more gimmicky positions in the upper area as well. There's all sorts of different areas that you essentially, you're playing this tiered game of approaching different parts of the map, and you're trying to make them push further back and get to a position where you can isolate them, where they can no longer fall back, unless they're really trying to play retake or something. So as a result of that alone, I think the tactical play that is at just the potential for tactical play in this map is really, really high, because of the fact that you have the opportunity to say, hey, I want to actually really leverage the positional elements of this map, and I want to throw a couple of smokes here, a couple of nades here, but you got to hold on to that utility as much as you can to flush out the actual bomb site itself. Because once the CTs get pushed back, if you're not able to secure those opening picks, that's a position where suddenly you've got to worry, are they over here with the garden hose? Are they over here behind this little bangable spot over here? Should you announce your presence by wall banging that and attempting to kill them because you think that they are there? Are they holding in some of the retake spots that you want yourself to be as a T in those post plant scenarios? Are they all the way back in mid and Heaven trying to retake. Where are the CTs themselves? Information is even more crucial than in normal in Counter-Strike when you're playing on this map. And that's one of the main reasons why I'm so excited to share the map with you guys, because it's led to some very exciting moments when I'm playing it myself. So, bearing all that in mind, we can come to mid as well. We didn't really look too heavily at mid earlier. We just talked about the different positions that a CT might be able to play. If you're expecting a 2-1-2 setup, I would actually say that maybe you'd lead two people towards mid, more like Cash, where you have some people, like old style Cash, where you're having one person potentially Z and one person potentially Highway. And you sort of have the Highway player cheat towards holding the squeaky position on the A-bomb site, and otherwise you've got two people on the B-bomb site. That's how I would imagine the overall style of playing this map would look like, because you essentially have one person in the dedicated mid-opping position. And then you'd have a supportive rifler coming out over here, which is essentially the B-bomb site, or the A-bomb site, sorry. The A-bomb site, you come away from the A-bomb site and you're heading towards this sort of lane area, which is a nice fast track from mid to the A-bomb site as well. And it gives you a nice position where you can essentially supportively rifle and try to back up your opper, who's maybe in the house, maybe he's dumpster, and he's sort of like playing around in the lower area, or maybe he's still all the way up in window. He can sort of elevate his positions and change his positions with the op pretty much anytime he wants. And you as the rifler are going to be there to support him from this sort of, again, if we want to call this highway because of the allegory there, we can call it that sort of highway position. So the A-bomb site allows you to have a couple of different things in post plants as well, but it's not quite as open as the B-bomb site is. It might come as a surprise to you, because if you look at the A-bomb site, in theory, there's actually a lot more going on. The bomb site itself is just more oddly shaped. You can't plant back here, for example, for some reason, but you can plant over here. This is where I think maybe the bomb site needed a bit more iteration, just to get up to the same level of quality as the other one. Because if we look at the A-bomb site itself, there just seem to be strange decisions made, like why it's not a perfect square or rectangle, or even why, like, okay, you're going to cut this out, but maybe you should put some cover here instead of nothing. I'm not really sure why you wouldn't want people to be able to plant here, because it's not like you're eliminating an angle from the back spawn area for the CTs. I guess you are eliminating an angle from in the house, but you can still sort of do that with this. So that doesn't really fly with me either, because this sort of like sewer exit house over here that comes out, like if you go through sewers, you're kind of taking this position as a T. If you're going to be holding this in a post plant, you can still just peek from here and see anybody who's defusing a bomb that's planted right there. So I'm failing to see why there's a reason to not have this extend all the way out over here. I don't see anything that you gain as a T besides consistency as a player in general. And, you know, visibility on the site is very, very nice. There's nothing that you can plant on in terms of, like, debris. Like, I'm thinking, I'm not sure if this is still in the game, actually, but there was an overpass plant where you could actually hide the bomb almost completely, and the red light would still shine through. But it's surprisingly difficult to spot that after you win a 3 versus 1 clutch and you're defusing without a kit. That's a very difficult thing to ask for everybody, so I'm just saying maybe Valve should fix that. But when we're looking at this bomb site, it's very easy to spot the bomb. I don't really see any reason for you to not be able to have a perfect rectangle in that respect. At the very least, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't be able to plant all the way back here. This seems very, very bizarre and triggers my OCD. I just don't get it. So these are a couple of different complaints that I have. Some of them are a little bit more cheeky and potentially lighthearted than others. But I do have to wonder why the bomb site is the way that it is, when it just feels like maybe some testing happened and this was a patchwork fix to get around the issue instead of really attacking the root cause. Maybe there's some angle over here that they don't want you to be able to hold from, perhaps all the way back over here, which is essentially the A-bomb site's CT wrap. This is where we also might get lost if I don't show you the CT approach to things. The CT approach to mid is fairly self-explanatory. Again, that rotation does take a little bit of time, so you are going to be able to safely cross as a T, trying to cross over mid from your spawn. However, this area is definitely rough to traverse. It is possible to land this jump completely without having to worry about anything. You can land on that second windowsill. And if you pop these windows, it's very easy and roomy to evacuate pretty much anytime you need. You can also pop the other window over here, and this is very, very bangable, so a very vulnerable position for you to cross into if you do decide to do so. And I like how I'm pretty sure it's equally bangable no matter which position you're in, but I think the, well, maybe the glass actually stops some stuff, I'm not sure. But That would just be for the first shot anyway. The idea that I have over here is that the wood texture tells me that this is bangable in a very deliberate and obvious way, whereas maybe I'm not 100% sure how bangable every other surface is, whereas like I said, I'm pretty sure they're all bangable to relatively similar degrees. Yeah, there doesn't really appear to be much of a difference. So, bearing that in mind, to me, I'm looking at this map and I'm thinking, there's a lot of different positions that I could be in retakes and in post plants. That makes it very exciting for me because I can always position myself to have impact on the map pretty much no matter what's going on, unless I've made a really grievous error. And what I really like about that is the depth in choice that it gives the players. And like I said, there's a lot of tactical play that you can make. However, like I said earlier, there is a little bit of an embarrassment of riches, perhaps you could say. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you're looking at this, and the fact that the bomb sites are mislabeled doesn't help. But if you are crossing over into the A bomb site, and you're crossing over from CT, you basically have two choices. You can either go towards over here, which is very difficult to actually move through easily, which might be by design, but it's not a very good design, I would just sort of wager. That would be my take. And then if we look over here, this sort of more obvious, there's a building call-out over here somewhere. No radar callouts, unfortunately, either. So, fresh lake, crab, and fish. So, if he's going to be, coming out by that building, and he's looking towards the bomb site, I can imagine that maybe they wanted to dissuade anybody being able to op this angle, but they can still do it. Actually, never mind. I was going to say, like, maybe this angle is what they were trying to isolate, but then you can just plant here. So, that doesn't even really work either. I don't know why the bomb site's labeled that way, or set up that way. Pretty annoying, actually. There's no justification for it. Change it, IMO. So, yeah. Anyway, outside of all that, we do have, of course, a lovely set of angles. I really like the fact that there's so much open space over in CT spawn. I know some people would say that this is a waste of space, but I think for one, it really helps solidify the theme of the map. Although I think there's some skybox issues, shall we say, if we look over there. But I do think that the more domestic areas, like the actual land, pretty cool, actually. And, despite the fact that the visual fidelity isn't all there for a lot of the assets in this map, it does feel pretty good overall in terms of its thematic. I feel like it's actualized. Maybe there are a lot of areas more towards the B bomb site and that side of the map that look very similar. I will give you that as well. But this giant American flag adorned wall tower, or water tower, it's pretty cool, I think, as a target for blowing stuff up. At least I assume that's what you're doing, although I don't know why your bomb site's over here in that case. But whatever, it's close enough. And then I like the fact that there's a decent amount of American flags on the map. Actually, you may not have noticed this, but I did. Nice. Nice. I think there's a third one, but I won't bore you with it. So basically, this is where we end up coming towards the position where I've broken down most of the map. You guys know what the map is really all about. I guess I'll show the interior of this house because this is also where things can get a little confusing. This is the CT side, the sewer connector area. So if you're going towards the sewer storm drain area and you, instead of dropping down, decide to go this way, hi, I'm Matt, you can also wrap directly into the site. This is essentially the most powerful rush in the map, for my money. It does involve you exposing yourself to a mid pick, but this position is so pathetically easy to smoke. Even if you don't smoke the actual spot, and you just, instead, you smoke like more closer to you, that will still cover you because of the abundance of cover. So I'm pretty sure you don't need to smoke that deep anyway. So pretty much anybody, like the same way where everybody can smoke ramp on a Mirage, and I say everybody knowing that somebody will have a personal example of, well, you don't know my matchmaking team. Yeah, I'm sure it's a little rough out there. I'm sorry for bringing up that. But the fact that most people can smoke that, I would imagine, means that you can pretty easily get all 5 players in here, and before you know it, storm onto the bomb site. So this is a very powerful rush. It might actually be too powerful based on the timings. Certainly something where, sort of like Nuke on the A site, you definitely need some Molotovs in order to play those areas. I think maybe everywhere on Nuke you need Molotovs to play, to be honest. But particularly the inside areas, you definitely need some Molotovs. So as a CT, you're going to want to fork over the cash for an MP9 instead of a FAMAS or a MP or an M4 or anything like that. You're probably going to want to be rocking that MP9 if you're on an eco or low buy, and prioritize nades more so than anything else. But that's just my style because I like the tactical side, mostly because I can't hit nutty shots like Simple can, so I guess I can't really complain. But that being said, if we're looking at all of these different positions, if we're looking at the fact that we are dealing with a very powerful rush for the T's themselves. We also have to look at what positions this gives away. And if they are all coming from this area, normally that would mean that you can stop them where, essentially wherever you want to. But the timings favor the T's in this example, so I would actually suggest that if you're scared of a rush, you might not be able to do anything other than throw an incendiary at the door right here. Or throw a smoke, perhaps, to make it a little bit riskier. Admittedly, if they do decide to take this position, don't be fooled by the fact that these houses are close by. They are not connected whatsoever, and as a result, it's not like they can pop out over here if all 5 of them have gone from that other position. Which is why a more nuanced take on that strat would actually be to send like maybe 3 people towards that position and pressure it early, while one of them goes through the sewers area and the other one goes mid to try to contest the mid position to delay rotations, or maybe even goes B long or something. That would probably be what I would see out of this if you were trying to rush A, and that would obviously result in a large portion of just a little bit more of a nuanced position in general, I think. It's probably something that you want to be taking when you're trying to come up with a strat for this particular map. Otherwise, you'll just get red very easily. And I mean red both in the sense of being red with your tactics and also being red in the health bar as you step over red fire from a red incendiary grenade. See what I did there? So, there is, of course, a beach ball. Very important. Physics, objects, and source. Lol. Aside from that, what else can we talk about with regards to this map? I think some of the more interesting areas are obviously on the B-bomb site. I've made my case for why I really like the B-bomb site. I think there's a lot that you can do as a CT holding from the site, as a T trying to hold from a retake from the CTs. In fact, if we could get retakes on this map, and specifically on the B-bomb side, that would probably be epic. But I also think retakes on the A-bomb side could be interesting. I think the main advantage the A-bomb side has is the approach to it, and the fact that the approaches, other than the really fast rush, are really dynamic and interesting, and the fact that the CTs can essentially retake from a bunch of different positions. It's just that once they get to the point where they're on the site, the T's don't have as many positions on the site itself. They almost have to go into what you would consider retake positions. Like, a T might want to play it back over here, inside the sewer house. A T might want to play back where the rush was, by the sewer connector. T might want to play all the way back towards the spawn of the CTs, this wrap area over here. And T might also want to be playing more towards... well, I guess you can't... Well, let's see. Can I do this? This might be a bug here, but I am able to... Oh, maybe I have to be... I might be... Okay, yeah. If you crouch at least, or just stand exactly at this position, you can plant over here, which is probably a bug. Probably wouldn't be in the map if the map makers gave it another pass. That would obviously allow you to take the take a retake position as a T, a post-plant position as a T, a lot easier. So there's a couple of things, a couple of food for thought, but all in all, very fun map for my money. And obviously, I'm just here for the money. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've got to say for you. So, hope you appreciate this look at Trailer Park. I thought it was a really fun map. I think there's a lot of details in it that are really nice for tactical play. I do think that maybe the approach to the B-bomb site, or the A-bomb site rather, I think the sewer connection in general, that could probably use some work. And I think there's some areas where movement is not too great. But I think especially the B-bomb site, according to the minimap anyway, very well thought out angles, very well thought out connection with mid. Feels really, really nice, even though the connection is more subtle with the sound cue and all that. And I really like the fact that the rotations for the CTs are able to come in, despite the fact that the Ts themselves are able to have very, very powerful positions to either play lurk. It opens up so many different options. Yeah, you can rush the A-bomb site, but ultimately you can also do some really other very interesting things as Ts. You can decide to play a little bit more slowly and tactically and like slow down the rounds. You can speed up the rounds and up the pressure on either bomb site. There's tactical push and pull waiting to happen. A tug of war for the ages on this particular map with some cleanup, and especially in the art department, I think if it was brought more up towards the standard that the community kind of expects, and the game itself, the maps itself themselves actually do tend to expect as well, or demonstrate, then that would definitely help, I think, this map win the hearts and minds of many players. But it has potential to win minds, is what I'm saying. There's potential here in terms of the gameplay in this particular map that really make me think this is something that I can only get by playing Trailer Park on the workshop. So there will be a link in the description as usual. And if you liked this map, you might also like this video. And I mean that not just in terms of you enjoying it, but also you pressing the like button. And that's all I got for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another one of my map analyses. Remember to kill every plant you find. No particular reason, but that's the only destructible object in this map, so I had to do it. Oh wait, can we do this? Oh, that's disappointing. No vertigo for us. Bye-bye.